All right, good evening. It is Thursday, February 25th. This is the normal council meeting for the governing body of the city of Spring Hill, Kansas. Our first order of business, as always, is our invocation. Those of you who wish to do so, please stand and join us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we again humbly come before you and ask for your guidance and wisdom as we work to make decisions for our community that are not only in the best interests of our citizens, but moreover, honor you and your wishes. And dear Heavenly Father, from a personal perspective, I want to thank you for blessing us with such a warm and caring community. In times of need, this community has always come together, celebrating our victories and mourning our losses. And I could not be more grateful to be a part of this community. May you guide us tonight and always. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, sorry. Please continue standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The nice part about being on video is when you make a mistake, you have a more boisterous audience to observe it. So, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Leighton? Mr. Owen?
Here.
Mr. Graves?
Here.
Mr. Eckert?
Here.
Mrs. Hughes? Mayor, we do have a quorum present.
Okay. And Mr. Smoot, if you're able to make contact with Mr. Leighton, just let us know when he's back on, okay? All right, next item is approval of the agenda. I do have a requested change that Mr. Hendershot, just the financial update?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that we will move the financial update to a later meeting. It's not quite ready, and Mr. Hendershot will go ahead and give us some key components and mill levy overview on the budget. That is the only staff requested change. Any council requested additions or deletions?
Make a motion, we accept the agenda.
As revised?
As
revised, second.
As revised.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0-0. This takes us to citizen participation. This is an opportunity in the meeting for residents to address the council on items not already on the agenda. Anyone wishing to do so, we just ask that you step up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, and you will have the council's attention. Mr. Boswell.
Boswell, 504 Jackson. And last council meeting, we were discussing, during the discussion was with chickens and property requirements, et cetera, and so on. I believe they were looking at, is this, check, it's on. There, check. Nothing. Maybe I'll just talk about it. Anyway, we were talking about, we were discussing, or the council was discussing chickens and what requirements they were talking about to allow them within city limits. I believe that was gonna be around 2 acres is what they were kind of planning or thinking upon. And, that's not exactly what was in mind when they were asking to have chickens in the city limits. I believe it was more of a residential type setting instead of more of a large property type setting. There's only a couple properties within city limits that meet the requirements that you guys were looking at to begin with. So I did a little research. I called up Des Moines, Iowa. I've known that they allow chickens in the city of Des Moines, Iowa, which is a major city. And their only requirements for land was that you own the property and you can have up to 5 chickens, period. I wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that and how they were dealing with it. I asked them if they had many issues with that, and other than overpopulation of chickens, meaning people had more than they were supposed to, it wasn't really a big issue. There was no snow problems or noise pollution, for that matter, is what they said. As long as there's no roosters allowed out in the state. So I wanted to stick that information into that conversation for you guys too when you're considering this proposal. Also was brought up, it was in the codes. You were talking pot-bellied pigs came up in the codes or something, and I think there was a weight limit of 80 pounds for pigs within the city limits. And I called first I called my vet and asked him what if 80 pounds was a healthy weight for an adult pot-bellied pig, and he said that's dangerously skinny and cruelty to animals because they usually get to around 110 to 200 pounds. So maybe we need to look at revising the weight limit on those for those people that do have pigs. And the third thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, guys, is gentlemen, is that the city seems to I don't know how to put this. The city has paid. I'll just put it this way: the city has paid for me to go to jail. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the funding and whatnot. And that was not sarcastic because it costs the city a lot of money to send me to jail over a vendetta between me and a neighbor. And I've heard any argument from, oh, it brings down property values to it could be a nuisance or whatever. That's great, except the facts never back up any of that information, such as the property right across the street from us just recently sold for $200,000. Now, that's a lot more than it was appraised at. And another neighbor sold a house recently, and the purchaser of that house paid I think $180 for that house, and it was also right above appraisal, just a slight bit above. There was no delay in sales. I mean, these houses sold very quickly. Many delays that were there were due to the owner's hesitation to sell. Other than that, it seems as though we might, as a city, want to consider some kind of mediation between neighbors that have disputes or issues or just plain out don't like each other. Instead of going through the courts and costing the city lots of money. It's well over $1,000 in my case that it's cost the city. And, it's not fair to the city or the taxpayers to have to pay for a vendetta. So that's why I consider, that's why I bring that to your attention, so that possibly the city can get other ideas and other ways to involve the community with people that are having disagreements and bring the community closer together that way through litigation.
Mr. Boswell, I've met with about a dozen of your neighbors, and it's not a vendetta. And I think everybody deserves quiet enjoyment of their property, wouldn't you agree?
Well, I agree, and there's no noise. So,
And given the fact, quiet enjoyment is a legal term of art, it doesn't necessarily mean volume. It has to do with trash, debris, other things collecting.
well,
And Mr. Boswell,
yes,
you also took your case up on appeal, correct?
I did.
And-
the only reason it was denied for appeal was because of the time frame.
Well, that's still a legitimate reason for denial of an appeal.
Absolutely.
So what I want to point out is it's not a vendetta by a neighbor. It's a violation of city codes. The city has worked with you. The city has provided resources for
The city
you.
did not follow their own protocol.
And you had the opportunity to prove your case in court, and you had the opportunity for appeal, correct?
I'm not worried about me going to jail, Mr. Mayor. I'm worried about the fact that the citizens have to pay for it, and you don't seem to care how spending the money willy-nilly to pay for people to go to jail for that. Because
What I care about is making sure that the ordinances are enforced and making sure that everybody has the ability to enjoy their property. Mr. Boswell, you have the opportunity, you had the opportunity in court to prove your case. You had the opportunity to file for appeal.
May I finish, Mr. Ellis?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Now, as I was saying, I was never once offered a fine that could actually help the city with money. So, the only person that I know of was a neighbor that requested jail time only. And you can go through Nate Sutton, the original attorney for the city on the job, and that's all he was ever seeking, first off. Second off, there was never a fine, period. Never got an option for a fine, ever. I don't know how that's in the best interest of the citizens of Spring Hill and the taxpayers, first, okay? And then on top of that, if you guys wanna hit me for a license plate not being on a vehicle, even though the car was currently registered, insured, and licensed, the plate was not on it, that's a technicality, that's fine, you can do what you want, but we are not Overland Park, and this city, people move here to have the uniqueness of a city. They don't wanna be like Overland Park, they move out of Overland Park, and what you're doing is you are starting to turn this into Overland Park, nitpicking people, bullying them around for any little code violation you can find, and it's gonna get people that are moving out here in Groves already because they wanna get away from that. You're gonna start driving them out of here because you're gonna be doing the same thing.
Mr. Boswell, with 185 new single-family home permits last year, 228 apartments going in, 750 more, I don't think your statement is accurate. People have tried to help.
It's not accurate.
That people are leaving this community in droves. They're
I did
not.
not say that. I said they were leaving Overland Park in Groves because they wanna get out to the small city feel.
Well, I don't think anybody moves here to live next to debris being piled up in somebody's yard, inoperative
Why don't we do
vehicles.
something about the things I've complained about multiple times, that are multiple violations, like the property at King, or just right up the street from me on Jackson Street, where there's huge piles of brush piled up in a big open empty lot.
Okay, Mr. Hendershot, follow up on that tomorrow.
I have already requested this for 2 years now. Nothing has been done.
Okay,
If you're really concerned with the city, Mr. Mayor, why don't you get out there and take care of it yourself, or get out there and get whoever's responsible for it to take care of it? We've gone through Mr. Hendershot, he's not been able to do it. We've gone through Mr. Wimpy, he has not been able to do it either. So apparently, either we have an issue with staffing in the city, or you just don't really care that much to deal with people that have money like Mr. Hickey that owns that property. I do not know, I'm not going to assume, but there's definitely a question there.
Mr. Boswell.
Mr., this is my time, let me finish speaking, please.
finish.
I will. I think that there's a lot better ways to spend our tax money than harassing people over minute or minor things. And I also believe that people move out to this community to get away from the harassment of like Overland Park, etc., and so on. If you're gonna write me a ticket for bicycles and wagons in my yard, kids' toys, that's absolutely ridiculous, and it is done and over with, and I'm going to expose that. That is unequivocally ridiculous, and poor judgment on your part.
If you feel aggrieved, absolutely
Thank
avail
goodness you are
yourself.
no longer running for mayor.
Mr. Boswell, I appreciate your time, but to sit here and say that the things that have happened to you have been brought on by the vendetta of one person is an unfair statement.
You're right, it's that person and their friends. Because you've never asked anybody else that is in my neighborhood currently. You've never asked Mr. Snavely, have you?
Mr. Snavely and I have talked.
Yes, and what did Mr. Snavely have to say?
He is supportive of you.
That is correct. What about the people across the street, Brad Shell?
Look, Mr.
That's
Boswell,
right. You
people,
don't talk to
no,
anybody
I don't
except
go
Mr.
out
Snavely.
and
That's
talk
correct.
to them. I go and talk to the people who come in and ask for help. And that's been many of your neighbors, Mr. Boswell.
Many of my
And the
neighbors,
city,
Can you give me an idea of which ones or who?
well, I'm sure we have the names somewhere, but I don't think that's probably going to be productive, do you?
I think it would be productive because it would prove that you are misstating facts. that these people that may be complaining aren't actually my neighbors. Like, Mr. Spader lives 3 or 4 houses down on the other side of the street. You know, I apologize that squirrels like to dig in my trash and pull crap out all the time, because I finally figured out that's what's been going on. But other than that, you know, my property has been clean and maintained for a while. So it's not the cleanest property, I will agree. But when I get complaint from when I went to court that my Christmas lights needed to be, or my Christmas decorations, I'm sorry, needed to be removed, and that was on January 2nd that I had court. I had them down on the 3rd. But still, that's a little ridiculous. It feels like I'm being singled out. Because there's multiple people that still have Christmas decorations out, and they're not getting told that, hey, you need to remove those or anything else. If you want to try to say that this is not a vendetta, I would love to see the people that have had concerns over my property and see if they're my neighbors or if they are affiliated with a neighbor that has a vendetta against me.
Then we'll invite them to a meeting.
Well, I will do so, but you said that you have all these people that have complained, so I would like to see who they are.
No, I said we will invite them to a meeting. Some of your neighbors have been here before.
Great, invite the neighbors, please. I will be here next meeting, and I will be happy to see who has such a problem, and of course, I hope they put their address down. So, anyway, I do not appreciate and I do not approve of the management or the mismanagement of funds that the city has had lately. And I think that definitely needs to change. And I think the people spoke about that last election cycle when we did city council seats. They wanted change, they wanted new, and they wanted fresh.
All right, thank you, Mr. Boswell. The floor remains open. Hearing none, we'll close that portion and we'll move on to our one and only presentation, Budget Key Components. Mr. Hendershot, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tonight, I'll briefly touch on the budget process for this year. If you recall, last year we did our first ever 2-year budget cycle. The 22 budget was approved in concept, if you will, with the statement that as we get into the 2021 year and the 2022 budget cycle, we would come to you with suggested revisions or amendments to that budget. What I have here before me, and I'll be happy to share this with you after the meeting or email it to you, and we'll also put this on the website if you choose, is the budget schedule. That is a series of approximately 10 or 11, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more opportunities to visit about the budget between now and August the 12th. Key components in those discussions include market salary and benefit survey results, capital improvement program for 2022 and 26 through 26. The review of the 22 budget would be on April 22nd per this schedule. There'll be a work session on May the 13th, if approved by the council, to hold that for outside agencies and city boards to give updates. The utility fund review and rate discussion also in May. Then in June, we'd have the final budget presentation, the hearing in July, Planning Commission review on August the 5th, followed by adoption or consideration of adoption on August the 12th. That is the proposed schedule. There are some dates. It is a very tight schedule, as it always is every year, but there is some wiggle room in there. For instance, the presentation that we rescheduled, we'll get that rescheduled for one of these upcoming meetings. But that's the key portions of our budget. We will not be going through the budgetary or departmental requests because we did that 2 years ago. So it'll just be a scaled back version from last year. Any questions you might have?
All right,
Thank you.
very much. This takes us to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 300. This takes us to our one and only formal action item, acceptance of bid, Spring Hill Aquatic Center. This is the amenities revitalization. Mr. Hendershot, you have the floor.
See it.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go through the agenda review, and then I have an update to provide to you that has just come to fruition in the last day or so. This is acceptance of bid for professional services agreement. It is for painting of some of the amenities at the Aquatic Center. Many of those pool amenities have been fading in color and texture since it was originally installed some 10 or 11 years ago. The standard is to revitalize those amenities with new paint within a 10-year period. When we first estimated the cost of this, we thought it was in excess of $20,000. Therefore, we followed our purchasing policy and issued an RFP. That RFP went out, and we did receive 2 bids that were well below the $20,000 threshold. And you do have a bid tabulation that indicates those bids anywhere from $11,263 to $20,288. Timing of this work is critical with the anticipated opening of the pool for the 2021 season. In addition, the work must be completed prior to filling the pool, which is scheduled for late April or early May, weather dependent. This pool filling schedule provides adequate time to ensure any problems with the pool are corrected and provides an opportunity for on-site training of lifeguards. As a result of this critical timing issue, staff is requesting action by the council to accept the bids from the RFP and direct staff to enter into a contract negotiations with the low bid contractor, Daco Painting Incorporated. In addition, staff is requesting action to authorize the contract for professional services. The contract is being developed by the city attorney and will be distributed to Daco Painting for review, comment, and signature. To delay the approval of the contract to a future meeting is counterproductive from a scheduling perspective. Signature from the mayor on the contract would not be requested until all the insurance requirements have been satisfied. I'm very happy to inform you, council, that we do have that signed contract. We do have the insurance in hand. Everything is set for the mayor to sign. It is staff's, I will change my recommendation from the agenda review sheet. It is staff's recommendation that council accept the bids from RFP for painting services at the aquatic facility and authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Daco Painting Incorporated in the amount of $11,263. Questions?
We entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the bids from the RFP for painting services for the Aquatic Center and authorize the mayor to enter into contracts for professional service with Daco Painting for the amount of stated by Mr. Hendershot.
$11,263.
There you go.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 300.
Thank you very much.
Don't go too far, Mr. Hendershot. We have moved on to discussion, facility reopening, and then aquatic center, and you're leading both of those, I understand.
Yes, sir. At a previous council meeting, there was a discussion about reopening. And in particular, there were some questions about other communities and their ability to reopen and how that compared to our reopening plan. We did reach out, staff did reach out to communities, including the center at Tomahawk Ridge or Matt Ross Center, some facilities in Lenexa, at New Century, as well as the city of Olathe. And what we're finding there as a rule is some are open, some are not. Almost all are, if they are open with restrictions. Many are following the Johnson County health order to maintain those restrictions until March 31st, which was the standard that we are following as well. For example, the Tomahawk Ridge Matt Ross Center has restricted reservations until March 31st. They allow only one room in each facility to be rented at a time. Social distancing, and mask, of course, a max of 15 people as compared to their regular 80 in these rooms. There are no weekend rentals and there's no eating or drinking. Looking at Lenexa provides for restricted reservations again until March 31st with a maximum of 45 people, depending on the size of the room, of course, social distancing, etc. If there's any food there, it must be prepackaged. If it's in a buffet style and one person is serving everyone. At New Century, they are working directly with the health department and with their HR and risk manager for guidance. Social distancing is required, masks are required, even the players and athletes. Although they cannot enforce, they encourage, is what we were told. There is signage throughout the facility, hand sanitizers, temperature check stations. They limit their room rentals a maximum of 30 people as opposed to regular of 130, and et cetera. I know from personal experience in going to the New Century Gymnasium there that if you have a child who's in an event, they limit that to one person can come in with that person, with that athlete, if you will. Olathe is looking at a maximum of 50 people or half capacity, whichever is less. They only offer private parties, mask and social distancing. Renters must sign a COVID-19 notice stating that they are aware of the pandemic and compliance of mask wearing, etc. And that notice was created by their HR and risk manager and their legal team. They have outside contractors for labor to do the facility cleaning and disinfecting after each event, and then temperature technology camera at the entrance to check the temperature of everyone that walks in. Prior to the more restricted avenues that we are in now in Spring Hill, this is what we were following. In our rentals, it would be a maximum of 45 people. Unless the room was smaller, then it would be 50% of that occupancy load. Masks were required. Hand sanitizer was available. Signing of the COVID-19 notice. Renters and all participants must sign in for contact tracing. And the list of the guidelines that we posted on our website included that guests should plan and come prepared for your activity or meeting the limited time needed in the facility. Guests should enter through the courtyard doors. Meeting and our activities were limited only to those who were participating. All guests must be able to fit in your designated meeting rooms with no overflow into the hallway. Guests should socialize or wait outside of the facility where social distancing can be achieved. Sanitize your hands upon arriving and before leaving. Again, guests were asked to sign in, wear a face mask over your nose and mouth. Please stay home if they are sick. Those things that we have heard over and over and over, but it doesn't hurt to keep repeating. Be patient, flexible, and kind, and social distancing was encouraged throughout the facilities. Received information from Johnson County today that I thought was very encouraging. The goal of less than 50 new cases. Mayor, help me out here. Was it a week per week?
I know the actual number dropped below 5%. He's saying
Yes.
4%.
The positivity rate, which is the number per 1,000 people, the goal was 5% or less. According to the information that came out today from Johnson County, we're at 4.3. So that is very encouraging news that the trend continues to go down, and I know the same is in Miami County. So perhaps it is time to reconsider opening of our facilities. We are prepared, if it is the guidance of the council, to reopen our facilities under the same criteria that we were in prior to closing those rooms, which were what I just read. Currently, we are not accepting reservations or room rentals. But again, we are comfortable with returning to those if that's the guidance of the council. I think the caveat here must be, and we experienced this, is that depending, if we were to reopen our facilities for rentals, depending on the direction of COVID, it is possible that we may need to backtrack, and that may mean cancellations of some of the events. And that's very unfortunate because people plan those. But I think that's a very strong caveat that we need to maintain being in touch with so that people understand it's always subject to change. Right now, it appears the numbers are working in our favor, in everyone's favor throughout the world, and that's awesome. So perhaps it's time to, and I look to you gentlemen for guidance on whether we should reopen our facilities for rentals.
Well, I like the idea of reopening. I also like what Olathe is doing, I think you said, with the signing of the COVID-19 notice.
Yes.
And one of the things that I don't want us to be in the business in is having our employees enforcing some of these guidelines in events. I think that puts our employees in an unfortunate posture. And I think if the participants sign, or the host rather signs the COVID-19 agreement, that they understand, I don't know what all's included in this, but that they understand that there are risks with the gatherings and that these are what the rules are and they'll have to police themselves. I would certainly be open to that. I don't know how everyone else feels.
I think I would too. I'm ready for us to get back to normal as much as possible, as long as we take into account our employees, make sure they're not endangered.
Right.
And even the public's not endangered, but as much as we can open, I'd be more than happy to see it.
I do have one question. When we do rentals, do they require deposits for a rental?
I'm gonna ask my facility manager to assist me here with some information. Gabby, can you come forward, please? This is Gabby Kemp. She's our facilities manager.
Hello.
Yes, we do require a security deposit at the time to hold that event date.
Okay.
And the remaining rent for the event is due 2 weeks prior to the event date.
So the caveat I would want to add is, like, if things change with COVID, make sure that deposit would be refundable, because I don't think we should hold a citizen,
Yes.
and I don't know if that's the policy right now or not, if they get a,
We have been doing that.
okay, perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a sliding scale for, like, community organizations like 4-H, Boy Scouts, things of that nature? Is it tiered or a sliding fee for those type of organizations to use the facility?
We have a facility fee waiver for nonprofit groups that they can fill out. That goes to Jim, and Jim approves if they meet the requirements.
With regard to the gymnasium, that's been the most I've been hearing from the community, is the gymnasium being available for rentals.
To just a little further reiteration or clarification on your first question is, as Gabby mentioned, we do have the waiver, and there are established criteria for that. What that allows for is for groups such as 4-H or the Rotary or some of those nonprofit organizations to use one of our meeting rooms one day a month for no charge, and the gymnasium once a year. As far as the gymnasium, it would be our intention to reopen that gymnasium, probably more for structured events and practices more so than for open gym. Open gym can become a bit of a free-for-all, but we can certainly look at those options and work through the rec commission as well on events that they may be able to help us schedule with. But we would definitely be including the gymnasium in that. I'd love to hear the basketballs bouncing down there. Mr. Eckert, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, anything else on the facility reopening? All right, Mr. Henderson, if we can move on to the Aquatic Center reopening plan.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, just real quick, just for clarification, it is a consensus of the council to reopen. Yes, sir.
It is.
We will react accordingly then. All right, for this next one on the Aquatic Center, I do have some slides that we'll put up there, Mr. Smoot. This discussion is centered around two options that have been developed primarily by Ms. Kemp. She's done an awesome job on both the facilities and the aquatic facility. But we'll be talking about two options for reopening the Aquatic Center. Just as a quick background, if you recall, in 2019, we were able to offer group swim lessons, private swim lessons, river walking, open swim. Pre-COVID, everything was, we were rocking at the pool and it was full every day. Then 2020, unfortunately, the The direction that was decided to take, not unfortunately, but the responsible action, in my opinion, was that the Aquatic Center would not open due to COVID-19. We do feel in 2021 that there is a strong need for community activities and amenities. Our goal then for this year for reopening, if I get the next slide, please, would be to safely and effectively operate the facility in a clean and healthy environment and offer some community activities. Regarding the safely and effectively operating a facility, recommendations would be that we would schedule staff in teams of A, B, and C, and each would have a backup. We would follow all the CDC cleaning standards and follow all local mandates and health orders. With regards to maintaining a clean and healthy environment, it would be our recommendation to open the pool, close for cleaning after each activity. That would be a 15-minute clean time after swim lessons and classes, and a 30-minute opportunity for cleaning and disinfecting after an open swim session. And I'll get into those swim lessons and activities here in just a little bit. We would also revise some positions so that they understand that their duties do include cleaning and disinfecting of those high-touch surfaces and areas in particular, as well as the other areas that they would be assigned to. When it comes to community activities, then it would be our recommendation to open the pool and offer swim lessons, private swim lessons, river walking, and open swim times. Next slide, please. With regards to CDC considerations, and I might add that the vast majority of what I'm about to talk about is CDC recommendations. They do have a web page dedicated specifically to how to safely reopen public pools. And Ms. Kempf has done a great job of putting together programs that follow that. It also follows the Johnson County guidelines and regulations, which we are expecting them to release their update possibly even as early as tomorrow. But there are 6 considerations from the CDC for public pools. First of which is staying at home or isolating when it's appropriate. To help achieve this, we would educate our staff and patrons that they should stay home or isolate isolate until they can return. We would ask staff and patrons to do a self-assessment at arrival, and we would post signs throughout the facility and at the entrance of the facility. That self-assessment would include questions to yourself, such as, have you been exposed to anyone with COVID-19? Are you experiencing any COVID-19 related symptoms, etc.? Questions that many of us have heard many times as we go to our medical checkups and those things. Regarding social distancing, then, we would encourage social distancing. That is defined for pools as patrons should stay at least 6 feet apart in and out of the water, away from people they do not live with. Now, obviously, maintaining 6 foot of distance in the water would be extremely difficult. So it's a goal to try to achieve. However, in the water, it would be much more difficult to achieve that than out of the water. However, to help achieve this, particularly on out of the water issues, we would put markers or tape on the ground measured at 6 feet apart at the entrance and exits of the facility. Inside the pool, the attractions such as diving boards and slides, the restrooms, front desk, and concessions lines. And we are equipped to develop a QR scan code for easily accessing our menu for concessions while the patrons remain in their designated spot to try to keep that line moving as quickly as we can. And we don't get any group that's clogging up that concession line, so to speak. And as I said, we do have that technology. The CDC does acknowledge exceptions that can be made to social distancing, and those include, for obvious reasons, rescue of a distressed swimmer performing CPR or to provide first aid, or evacuating the water or the facility during an emergency. I think it's important to note that lifeguards on duty would not enforce social distancing because their purpose is to guard the water. Okay. The CDC also recommends assigning separate entries and exits into the facility to encourage everyone to move in one direction. We do the same thing here. Our recommendation would be to have all patrons and staff enter through the breezeway or the primary entrance, then they would exit through the side gate by the playgrounds. We would have that gate staffed in the event of anyone thinking that they could come in through that gate. Keeps that flow all going in the same direction. CDC also recommends staggering start and end times for swim lessons and classes to allow for greater social distancing on that deck. We are prepared to do that through our scheduling, and it also allows for those 15 and 30-minute clean times I spoke of earlier. CDC recommends educating staff and encouraging staff and patrons to arrive swim ready. What that means is showering before you come to the facilities. Our restrooms will be open, the showers will not. So everyone should be dressed in their swimsuit, come to the pool, swim ready, because we are recommending the closing of the locker rooms with the exception of the restrooms, and then post on our social media and our website what those expectations are for patrons. Regarding the cloth mask, then, it's our recommendation that mask would be required when moving throughout the facility, but mask will not be worn in the water. It's our recommendation that lifeguards would be supplied with neck gaiters to wear while they are on the stand. Lifeguards wear neck gaiters while they're up and moving throughout the facility and changing positions. There would be an option to wear the neck gaiter around the neck while they're on the stand, unless they're approached by someone while they're on that lifeguard stand. If you're familiar with our pool, not all lifeguards are on a stand. Many are just on the deck around, so they would be wearing their gaiters at that time. Hand hygiene, obviously, is a critical part of the CDC recommendations. Encourage hand washing and have signage explaining the proper way. We would install hand sanitizer stations throughout the aquatic facility. There is a sink in the lifeguards' break room, and we would recommend and encourage routine hand washing by staff. We do feel we have an adequate supply currently on hand of PPE for cleaning and operating the facility. However, we will always monitor that and continue to talk with our partners in Johnson and Miami County, as they have been very good about helping provide those cleaning facilities to us at no cost, I might add. There were several mentions there about signs and messages throughout. These signs are available through CDC and Johnson County. They are printable signs that we can replace as they get wet or damaged, have them laminated and put in the appropriate places. Lastly, the CDC recommends limiting gatherings in and out of the water if social distancing cannot be maintained. With that said, it would be our recommendation to not allow parties or groups to take place. And that's part of the renting that we formerly did. It's hard to socially distance and keep those households together. It's also very difficult to keep those who are at the pool from not wanting to join those groups. So it would be our recommendation that we would not go with the party or group rentals. Next slide, please. Option one of our two-option plan for reopening would include 3 morning activity blocks, and I'll define an activity block is defined as low-impact river walking with the pumps and the currents off. It also includes regular river walking with those pumps and currents on. It also includes swim lessons and water aerobic classes. So under this option, we would have 3 blocks of time for those activities. We would also have 3 2-hour open swim blocks. In this example, it would be from 12 to 2, 2:30 to 4:30, and from 5 to 7, and that provides that 30-minute cleaning and disinfecting time. A conversation I will ask us to undertake when I'm finished here quickly with my presentation is, what do those fees look like? Currently, we have a $5, Gabby, is that correct? $5 admission fee. So perhaps we need to look at what that admission fee may look like, because at the end of each of those 2-hour sessions, those folks would be asked to leave, clean, the next set comes in. The morning activity blocks, we would estimate that there could be 4 private swim lessons could be going on in the large pool during each activity block. And the estimation there is those would be approximately $20 per swim lessons. Low impact river walking, or those without the pumps and currents, can be going on while the swim lessons are going on. And during that last morning activity blocks, the pumps and currents would be turned on. It offers more resistance for those that want that resisted river walking. We estimate that there would be a $15 charge for 5 river walking sessions or $3 per session. Currently, based on the square footage of the water surface at the pool and allowing 36 square feet per person, that equates to an occupant load of 72 people who can be in that pool facility. I want to emphasize that's subject to change. There was some discussion today that that number could increase. And as soon as we find out what that number is, I would anticipate we would increase that number. And then you have some estimated revenues there at the bottom of the page, dependent on a $3.50 admission charge, a $4 or a $5 admission charge. If we go to the next slide, please. Option 2 is very similar to option 1, only it reduces the morning activity blocks to 2 and increases the 2-hour swim blocks to 4 of those, and then 1 activity block. And again, it's that is the primary difference between option 1 and 2, is do we want to offer more or more block activities and less open swim time, or increase or go the other direction. Okay, next slide, please. Things for consideration or discussion and guidance from the council would be, do we want to limit the occupancy or those using the pool to residents only, or do we open it for residents and non-residents alike? And also, we have traditionally offered season passes, which in these times I don't feel is the proper way to go. However, punch passes can be used. The issue or punch passes come, you buy them in up to 10 admissions. They swipe their card and it deducts off of that. Punch passes traditionally have carried over from year to year. Ms. Kemp and I talked about that today, and if someone buys a punch card for 10 passes and only uses 6 of them, and next year maybe it's at $3.50, and next year we're at $5 because we're fully open, quite honestly, that's fine. Come back to our pool, use your punch pass next year. It's $1.50 in that example. And I would encourage that those punch passes be able to be carried over. We never know what's going to happen with COVID or weather or anything else, and let's not get that particular. I am looking for guidance, Mayor and Council, on reopening the pool. If you like these plans, if you'd like to see some changes to these plans, I think they're very workable. Ms. Kemp is working hard to get the staff on hand. Kudos to Ms. Kemp. She completed her training that allows her to do lifeguard training in our pool. That was the Red Cross agreement tonight. So that opens up a lot of avenues for us. It also encourages us to get the pool filled earlier so that we can get to those lessons for those lifeguards. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will open the floor for any questions you may have and get some guidance.
A couple of different things, Jim. First of all, and I don't know if it's in something that's prepared to be published, there's a phrase that I'm uncomfortable with, and that phrase is what we are expecting of our patrons. It's instead what we're asking of our patrons.
Okay.
These are the folks who are paying for this facility.
Okay.
It's a phrase that I've read from another organization that is a little bit grating to patrons of that organization.
A little abrasive. Okay, understood. Thank you for that.
The other thing is, I have a concern about net gators
Yes, sir.
and lifeguards. My understanding is that it's not terribly uncommon for somebody attempting to rescue a drowning victim to become a victim themselves. I'm concerned about somebody grabbing hold of that gator. Is this something that's been vetted by the Red Cross as appropriate, or?
It has not been vetted by the Red Cross. I reached out to a few other facilities, and this is what they have done.
I would just be concerned about that, and maybe I shouldn't be. I'm not a very strong swimmer myself, so I'm certainly not going to be one who's jumping in, but if we could just investigate that.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
The other
valid
piece
point.
that I would throw out just for consideration is, until we have a better understanding of what the usage is going to be at the facility, I would be fine restricting that to residents only until we know, do we have enough capacity to satisfy the people who are going to be basically supplementing the payment of the expense of that facility this year. What was the amount? It was over $300,000 in
Yes, sir.
supplemental contribution from the general fund.
Yes.
But that would be my thing, and I think, in my mind, that's something that could change relatively quickly. If we see that we have a lot of capacity remaining, then we could go ahead and open it up. But those are just the initial thoughts that I have.
And regarding, and we had some internal conversations on what that might look like if we did go to a resident, non-resident, would it be a utility bill? Would it be, a driver's license, whatever it might be? And we could look through how best to accomplish that. I do want to go back just quickly on some of those slides. There was a net expense and then there was revenues. I want to make clear those revenues do not include concessions. Okay, that was just for the swim times.
Sure.
So Jim, do we have, a couple things I had real quick, positive cases, if we have a positive case, like, do we have to close the pool, or have you guys thought, like, how we handle that? I know last year, like, sometimes they would have, like, an exposure, and then they close it down or whatever. Would we be doing that this year?
We'd have to follow some CDC guidelines if there was a potential exposure, and then much like we would do with our facilities, do contact tracing as much as possible. I'll meet with Ms. Kemp because we have not discussed that. Or do you have some guidance on that?
We would work directly with the health department, and I am currently trying to work on a plan for exposure. So if a staff member does get sick or a patron, we do have a plan that we can go to.
Okay. And then number 2, I don't love the idea of the time blocks where you have to leave after 2 o'clock. Like, do we, and I know we're limiting things, but is there a way to do it? Like, what happens if you arrive at 1 o'clock? Are you given that time slot between 12 and 2 and you have to be there between 12 and 2?
Yes, you would sign up for that time slot.
So,
With the understanding per these options that
Right.
at the end of that time, everyone leaves and allows us that opportunity to clean.
okay. I don't know. I'm eager to open up. I want to do it safely, obviously, but I just don't love the idea of, like, you get 2 hours and that's it, you're done for the day. I almost wonder if we could, I understand the cleaning, but maybe it's like, adult swim type thing where it's like, okay, everyone out of the pool for that half hour and then we can go back in or whatever. But that we can discuss more. And then, I think that's really all I have for those 2 things. But thank you for your help on this.
Yes, sir.
And most importantly, I think we need to get our pool open.
I agree. That is our goal.
I have, on the scheduling, you had a couple different options for morning blocks and then afternoon blocks. You had one that had a smaller amount of morning.
Yes.
Go back.
Can we go back
Yeah.
to the slides, option 1 and 2? Okay,
Is-
option 1 had the 3 morning blocks
Okay.
with open swim time starting at noon. And then Antoine, if you can go to the next one, please. Option 2 then had 2 morning blocks with that first open swim block was starting at 10:30.
Not knowing how popular are those morning blocks. Do we know, do we need, is 2 good enough, or do we have to have that third one? I'm looking for more open swim time. I think the 4 blocks of open swim time, I think, would be more important for,
Yeah.
the kids and stuff. I'd rather see that than the morning spent. I know people like to do things. I just didn't know if there was this major group that want that morning stuff.
Well, I would say, Councilman Owen, that if that's the direction we go, say would be to option 2.
Option 2, yeah.
And we are not experiencing a high load of open swim from 10:30 to 12:30.
Okay.
Perhaps then we could go back and offer those
Okay.
blocks of activities in place of that.
That would probably be the
we
best thing, is to be flexible on what we're doing here.
I think we
That's
could.
exactly what I'm hearing from everybody too, is we want there to be maximum flexibility.
Yes, sir.
So that you folks can run the aquatic center in a manner that meets the needs of the community, so.
And then the fees, we're looking at, what options at $3.50, $4, or $5? Is that what I'm reading?
That's just the 3 that we,
Right,
our standard admission fee for all day is $5. So
okay, then
I struggle with $5 for 2 hours.
yes,
I
no, I
struggle
do too.
mightily with that.
I'd rather go to the lower amount,
You know,
for a
these.
2-hour block.
Yeah, that's entirely at your direction. We simply picked these 3 and worked the numbers to see what they were. It could be less, it could be one of these.
I'd say 350 or even less probably.
I-
You're only talking 2 hours, that's not a whole lot of
I-
time.
I think the 350 even is a little high.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, you know,
I'm thinking $3, cause then they have $2 to spend at the concession stand.
Okay,
No one likes
I know.
change at the pool.
yeah, I'm thinking, I kind of agree that the $3, 350 is even a little more expensive than we really need to, since we're only limiting them to 2 hours and they have to leave.
yes, sir. Would that be the consensus of council then, is $3? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll proceed accordingly then.
All I'm for is make sure we keep our employees safe and the public safe.
So if
we
I'm following the head nods then,
Yes.
we are looking at option 2 with the flexibility to go to maybe, if need be, of substituting an open time for a morning block, and the daily admission, or that 2-hour admission would be $3. And we're looking at residents only unless the numbers change to where we can increase our capacity. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Jim, I do have one question with these blocks things. Did you say that 2 hours was the CDC recommendation, like every 2 hours you get out and clean it?
I believe
Is
that's correct. Is that,
It's not a CDC recommendation. I reached out to surrounding facilities, and the 2-hour time block is what people did last year.
Because I almost wonder if we could, instead of 4 different blocks, if you could extend one like an hour longer. I just feel like 2 hours, by the time you get there, everything undone,
Yeah.
swim, I just feel like it's so short. And like, I have a 5-year-old or a 5-year-old and 7-year-old, and I can tell you, once we get there, done, swim for an hour, it's gonna be a nightmare to get them out of there, all within that 2-hour period, where if you had that extra hour, I think there's a difference between 2 and 3 hours, and maybe we shorten the number of blocks, but do 3 instead of 4.
Or did at least one block that had 3 hours. in
okay.
it.
Yeah.
We could certainly look at what a 3-hour time block looks like, and what that does for scheduling options, and then send it out to you and bring it back.
And one last thing on that, and then I'll
Yes, sir.
stop. Is there any time block where it says you need to take this time to clean the pool all the way down within X amount of hours per day? Is it like once a day? Is it every 4 hours, 6 hours? Like, or are we just saying we're gonna do this every 2 hours? Like, I don't know if that's overkill or kind of what,
From a
That
cleaning
recommendation.
perspective, I don't think we can clean it too much.
right?
But we don't want to be intrusive to the time as well.
I just wonder if you can do it while you have the pool open. Like, why? I mean, I don't know.
I think it's the getting the group out, so if somebody in there was infected, you're not infecting the
Right.
next group coming in theoretically.
And many of that same group that is doing the lifeguarding will also be doing the cleaning.
Right.
So it'll be difficult to do both, but we can certainly look at optional, schedules and bring that back.
So I think a third option would be a good idea, because right now it's kind of an either or. So another option would be good with more hours. But my concern is, at the pool, it clearly states to take a shower before you get into the water.
Yes.
Now, there's a plethora of reasons why we do that, right? We're washing
Yes.
off body oils and sweat, dirt, grime, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How does it make sense to close the showers before you get into the pool? And some people enjoy a shower after the pool just to wash off the chemicals. So can we expand on that a little bit so I can understand that a little?
I think the concern there, and Ms. Kemp, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the concern there is the close proximity of people in that shower room, and the number of people that would be in there, and the cleaning afterwards. Am I speaking correctly there?
That is a CDC recommendation, and surrounding facilities, their shower rooms are closed.
Couldn't we limit the amount of people that are in the shower room at a time? I mean, or make a suggestion, not limit, but make a suggestion, 3 people in the showers, because our showers are not open. You got concrete cinder blocks on each side and then a shower curtain that comes across.
But then it's cleaning it after every person, and we've got
Right.
kind of this finite number of people
Okay.
to work
but
in.
Not to be devil's advocate, but why in the world would you clean a shower when there's running water in there and everything's going down the drain?
Well, the same
Just,
argument comes about a pool that has.
I know,
chemicals in
right?
it. But, I mean, I think we need to follow the guidance that's out there. And one of the things that we're suggesting is we are asking of our patrons, hey, if
Yeah.
for this period of time, if you could shower before you get there, then that will help us to keep you safe and also help to keep our
Okay.
staff safe.
Just something that kind of turned in my head.
Sure.
And then that leads me to my next question. I mean, we have CDC guidelines, we have World Health Organization guidelines, State of Kansas Department of Health, Johnson County Health Department. There's a lot of information to absorb. So it seems like if you pick and choose from different entities, you can kind of create what you want in your own pool. And you can be skewed to the right or skewed to the left of that. when you're getting all that information down. So is there one set that we're following? Could you explain to me how that works?
The CDC guidelines is what we're following, yes.
Is what the state of Kansas follows and Johnson County follows?
I can't answer to the state of Kansas. Johnson County, I believe, follows them quite strictly.
So I guess the bigger question is, would it make more sense to us to follow Johnson County health guidelines? And if they say refer to the CDC, then we go to the CDC? I'm thinking more about local control, Mr. Mayor.
I think the standard is the CDC guidelines, and that's what throughout this pandemic people have turned to, and that's what we have been guided to follow.
Address the local control thing. The local control's right here.
Right.
That's where the decision is. The guidelines, what are generally accepted is what city staff is attempting to identify to help to keep patrons safe. Whether or not, I know Johnson County Health Department follows a number of the CDC guidelines.
Yes.
It seems like they're fairly strictly following a lot of them. I don't know if they're following all of them. I just don't know the answer to that.
And we can certainly do a comparison when
Yeah.
Johnson County puts out their regulations between them and the CDC. But I think we'll find, I'll be surprised if there's differences.
But let's do that. Let's
Sure.
see if we can find out what Johnson County's recommending for pools, if they have any guidance at all.
Okay.
And their guidance may just simply be CDC.
Be happy to do that.
But get that information back out to the council if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? I had one other thing, Mr.
I'm sorry.
Anything else? Okay. I wanted to go back to this facility. On the rentals, are we allowing food? Are we allowing people to bring food in?
We were up until we canceled reservations.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because
Okay.
if we're going to be selling concessions where we make money.
I see.
And then prohibiting people from bringing food in, that would be inconsistent.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, this takes us to announcements and reports. Just a reminder, Saturday morning, we have the annual legislative coffee. It was traditionally a legislative breakfast, but this year it will just be coffee. And Madam Clerk, is that at 7 or 7:30? I don't recall for sure. 7:30. If any council member plans on attending, if you could let the city clerk know, so that if we do have a quorum, she can make that meeting notice to the public. And that is all that I have. Mr. Owen?
Nothing for me, Madam Clerk. I probably will be at the coffee.
Okay. And Mr. Eckert?
Madam Clerk, I am 95% in attendance for that legislative coffee as well. Mr. Mayor, it's good to see you back.
Thank you very much.
Nothing else, sir.
Mr. Graves?
I will be there as well, and no reports.
All right, we will move on to staff reports. Mr. Hendershot?
I have no report, Mayor.
All right, Madam Clerk? Chief Henson?
Someone's got to say something, I guess. Just to bring everybody's awareness that next week is Severe Weather Preparedness Week. And according to the notification I received, we will be having a tornado drill on Tuesday at 10 a.m. But this is an opportunity for you to take a look at your home, make sure that you have, safeguards and everybody knows where to go in a severe weather. If you have things down in the basement that you need to make sure you have your weather radar and all that, or weather radio and all that stuff to take advantage of this upcoming week to prepare your home. And any businesses that you have, same thing. Where do your patrons go in severe weather? It's a perfect opportunity to kind of get people prepared for the summer. As a follow-up to our discussion item last council on the animal ordinance, I was able to reach out to the Kansas State Agricultural Extension. They did provide some information that we will include in the chicken draft. Some of that is mainly focusing on where we want to have distance from the residential homes and from the side and rear property lines is really where they say that we should focus on, so much less on the acreage. And then maybe increasing the height of the pen to 5 feet over 4 feet, because I guess chickens can jump out. And usually 4 feet, that's about their max, so. And then I also added we also added some additional definitions to help define what an exotic animal is. So if you guys if you have additional follow-up requests of us, please let me know so that we can do that research, answer those questions for the next discussion item in the upcoming month. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jenkins?
No report, Mayor.
All right, that concludes today's meeting. If there is nothing else, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?